Welcome back to Dakota Midday on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. I'm Carl Gerke. Coming up a bit later this hour, we'll talk with 1960s and 70s hitmaker Johnny Rivers. He's coming to South Dakota. But first, earlier this month, Governor Dennis Daugaard and representatives from 15 businesses and agricultural groups traveled to China for a week-long trip to explore markets for state commodities. Currently, South Dakota exports fewer goods than any other state, but the Asian nation is still South Dakota's third largest trading partner. Joining us now to discuss the trip and the Chinese market are two members of that trade delegation. Rob Mudge runs RPM & Associates, a Rapid City manufacturing firm. Mr. Mudge, welcome to Dakota Midday.
Well, thanks for having me.
Also with us is Marvie Tschetter of Lankota, Inc. of Huron. And Ms. Tschetter, thanks for joining the program as well.
Thank you.
Well, Rob Mudge, this wasn't your first trip to China? You've been on the trade missions before?
No, this is my first trade mission and my first trip to China.
Okay, well, what was the experience like?
It was incredible. There were, like you said earlier, Carl, there were about 15 groups that went, and the first thing I got to say before I get going is that South Dakota needs to be proud of the governor and the economic development staff because they worked incredibly hard. This trip was a marathon, not much sleep, lots and lots of travel, lots and lots of people, and lots of meetings. And the governor and his group had things set up so we went through the system, went through the week without missing a beat. And when you're traveling in those big cities, I'm telling you what, there's an incredible amount of traffic and lots of details to take care of, and they did an incredible job. But the trip for me, that being said, the trip for me was excellent. I had 10 meetings. One meeting was with a vendor that we have been using for about 5 years. One meeting was with a customer that we've had for about 2 years. And then I got to meet with three very large coal-fired power producers, and I actually toured two of the world's largest coal-fired power plants. One was the CLP Castle Peak plant in Hong Kong, and one was the Hong Kong Electric Power Plant, the Lama Station. And they have problems there. And I think those two meetings alone are going to result in a significant amount of business for us in the next upcoming months and years.
Well, we should mention that the coal-fired power plants, that directly relates to RPM and Associates?
Yeah, that's what we've been doing, Carl, for the last almost 30 years. When we first started, we weren't working the coal-fired power plants. For the last 28 years, that's been our primary focus, is working on equipment that wears out in the coal-fired power plants and coal mines. And of course, China burns about 3.5 times the amount of coal that we burn here in the United States to generate electricity. So the market is very large over there compared to what is here in North America. And so that was our interest in going on the trip, and I came back with two very good requests for quotation that I think will lead to a significant amount of work for our company.
Marvie Tschetter of Lankota, Inc., was this your first trip to China on a trade mission?
It was, and I have to agree with Rob. The team from the Economic Development Office did a phenomenal job trying to coordinate the meetings of 14 companies of various businesses. Was a awesome feat because you had businesses ranging from the food industry to the ag industry to manufacturing. And again, like Rob, South Dakota needs to be proud of a governor who has the vision that Governor Daugaard has. He is truly looking out for the best interest of South Dakota. What can we do to bring value-added jobs to South Dakota?
Did you find that there were people interested in Lankota's products? You manufacture ag equipment and parts?
We manufacture aftermarket ag products that are used to enhance original equipment manufacturers. The trade mission's main stopping points were Beijing, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. So two of the businesses, Lankota Group and Raven Industries, split off from the group after Beijing and went to Northeast China to a area called Harbin, where there are large state-owned farms. There are over 2,000 of those state-owned farms in China, and they encompass over 6 million tillable acres. We were able to meet with the director of some of the largest state-owned farms, who was very open and interested in our products, who then introduced us to the largest John Deere dealer in China, who his last remark to us was, "Do you have people who can speak Chinese so I can order your product?" So our meetings were incredibly productive. We have a lot of work to do on our end, as many of the businesses do, to be able to do business with China. It's a new frontier, but it's one that if we're going to expand our businesses, it's definitely an opportunity.
Has Lankota worked with Chinese customers before?
We have not. We have worked with customers in Canada and Australia, but not with the Chinese.
Now, Rob Mudge, RPM and Associates. Now, your company has worked with Chinese customers.
Yes, we have one customer in China that we've had for a couple of years. And the fact that I was able to, I actually split off a little bit from the group also on Sunday. Instead of going with the group on Sunday, the 7th, I actually, after arriving in Beijing, after a 14-hour flight on Saturday night, getting in there, having a quick dinner, and trying to catch some sleep because your body clock is off, I actually was up at 5 the following morning and hopped on a plane and went to Qingdao, where our customer is at, and visited with him all day, and then flew back to Beijing. And just the fact that I was there seeing the customer, I think, will increase our opportunity with that customer multifold, simply because we showed an interest of being there and taking the time to come see them. So they offered several other opportunities for us to take a look at. And they like working with Americans. They like American quality. They trust American quality. And so, they have some quality issues in China that they have to deal with, and that. And so when they can get tied in with an American supplier that does them a good job, they want to find more things that company can do for them, which is obviously good for us.
From your experience, are there certain challenges in working with Chinese companies? Are cultural differences a problem?
I don't. Yeah, there are challenges. I don't know if they're real problems yet, Carl, but there's certainly challenges. Certainly the language barrier. We had some folks that we met with that did speak, pretty good English. But we also had folks that, spoke no English, and we were working through interpreters, and so that is a challenge. But it's something that, I think the point of this trip was to help us as companies in South Dakota make the appropriate contacts, because for me to make the contacts that were made during this last week, if I were doing it alone, it would take me several years to do, if I could even get it done in that time frame. So now I have the contacts. Now it's up to me. Now I got to go to work. So there's some challenges, and there's some certain cultural differences too in how you do business. I mean, there's certainly a different way of doing business in China. There's some pretty significant level of corruption. There's the lack of respect for intellectual property in some of the areas. So you have to be careful. But our state was very good about briefing us. We met with some folks that do international business prior to going there. We met with the FBI. We also met with the embassy in Beijing before we went out on our meetings, and were briefed on things to and not to do and watch for. The U.S. Commercial Services folks that were our guides, or at least my guides throughout a lot of the program, were phenomenal in helping us work through some of those challenges. But to do business long term, it's going to take a lot of work on our part, but that's okay. South Dakotans don't mind work. We just need some opportunities, and they have a lot of opportunities.
Well, Marvie,
I think,
go ahead,
Carl. Too, there's a lot of misconception on the part of people in the United States of China and the Chinese people that may stem from the time of the Cold War. We were treated, at least and I heard this from everyone on the trip, we were treated with warmth and respect and genuine interest in doing business with us. Even in situations where maybe our product didn't fit, which was one instance, that company was still very polite, very considerate, and there's corruption, but smart business people, you encounter that in the United States as well. So again, like Rob said, our governor and his staff provided resources for businesses to help us be effective and efficient over there. So if you're cautious and smart, there is a great deal of opportunity. And the Chinese are not only interested in us doing business over there, they are very interested in coming to South Dakota and investing in South Dakota.
And I think along those lines, too, Carl, one of the companies that we are looking at as far as working together that we met with as far as representing RPM in China has already made a $10 million investment in Kentucky in a new facility. And so there are, as Marvie says, there are companies over there that not only want relationships of buying U.S. products and helping them over there, but also they're willing to invest in America as well.
Is there any information that you've brought back that you can share with South Dakota businesses that weren't on this trade mission?
I think there's a great deal of information available through the South Dakota Economic Development Group, through the U.S. Embassy, through the U.S. trade groups, and any of the companies that attended on this trade mission. We have all talked and said we would be more than willing to be mentors to other businesses that are considering going on the next trade mission.
Well, Rob Mudge, for businesses not only in South Dakota but elsewhere, do they need to look to markets like China in order to grow and to broaden success?
Well, I think certainly I don't think you want to ignore China, but I think certainly we don't ignore for example, our company, we don't ignore the market here in the U.S. and of course we go into Canada where there's needs. But when you see a market, for example, in our case, that's 3.5 times as large as what we have available here in North America, and you have an opportunity to explore that market, I think you should do that. So I think that the one thing that we were told in multiple times in different meetings was that, remember, China has 1.3 billion people. They are increasing, their level of standard of living is increasing substantially, and it has increased substantially in the last 20 years. Because when you go to downtown Beijing, Shanghai, or Hong Kong, you don't, other than the signage and the language, you don't know that you're in any different city than you would be a large city in North America. There's lots of traffic, lots of people, lots of free trade, lots of stores open, lots of businesses, and it's very, very similar. So I think you don't want to ignore that. And if you want to grow your business, they have I believe the number was they have about 500 million people in their middle class now. So they're changing from being the low labor market of the world to being the mall of the world. So if you have a product and you want to sell it, there's 500 million people there that are interested in buying it and capable of buying it. So I think there's a number of things there that you don't want to ignore it, and you should explore it.
Yes, Marvie Tschetter.
And on the other hand, one of the other benefits of the trade mission was the networking of the companies that went on the trade mission together. Many of us did not know the other companies and what they did in South Dakota. For example, this was the first time that Rob and I had met personally, and there are some things that Rob can do for our company. There was another opportunity that was introduced with Lankota and Clockworks, which was another business that went on the trip. So there's opportunity to grow within South Dakota just if you knew other businesses and what they did. and that spans beyond the South Dakota borders into other states within the United States. But it's getting to know what those businesses are, what they do, and what their needs are.
Rob Mudge, that was your experience as well?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I was the only West River representative on this particular trip. So, you know, and of course I'd met some of the folks already through other issues, other business relationships with Orion and Raven and some of that, but certainly Marvie and Kim had not met those folks. Some of the recycling people, certainly the ag people, had not met. And that was one thing so to me to see and understand and spend some time, with those folks, even though we all went our own directions, we had receptions together. We traveled 14 hours in an airplane together. You still get plenty of time to see and meet and visit and learn more about your own state.
Well, Rob Mudge, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on Dakota Midday.
Well, thanks for having me.
And Marvie Tschetter, thanks so much for your time as well.
You bet. Thank you.
Rob Mudge runs RPM and Associates, a Rapid City marketing firm, and Marvie Tschetter is with Lankota Inc. of Huron, and they were both members of Governor Dugard's trade mission to China earlier this month. You're listening to Dakota Midday on South Dakota Public Broadcasting. I'm Carl Gerke. Coming up after a short break, we'll talk with 1960s and 70s hitmaker Johnny Rivers.